Continuing our reading in the World and Thorinn by Damon Knight, Chapter 9, Section 1. How Thornton tried to cross a river and found it unlike other rivers. 3892 AD. Having been advised to undertake some unnecessary and intricate study, I chose languages and for my first attempt selected Lower Southwest Emish, since my business requires me to visit that sector frequently. At first I found the subject tiring in the extreme, but persevered, and after several months began to acquire some facility. My chief difficulty, I found, was not in learning the words themselves or their manner of pronunciation, although this included mastering several unaccustomed sounds, but, and this was wholly unexpected, in learning the order in which the words are made into sentences and the ways in which they influence one another. The translator had no rules governing these things in its memory, but at my order was able to deduce and formulate them. This aided me considerably, but many difficulties remained unresolved. To give an example of the simplest kind, where we say, "I intended to take some rest now," the Laswem says, literally translated, "Being at repose, this one is to call." At first, I believed that there must be some malfunction in the translator, but a second machine gave me identical results, and later I was able to observe that when a Laswem expressed a desire translated as, "I intend to take some rest now," this in fact was what he actually said. I commented to a professional acquaintance of mine that I wondered how he could express himself in so illogical and arbitrary a language. He at first pretended not to know what I meant, and when at length I made him understand by showing how much more clearly and simply we convey the same meaning, he expressed the opinion that it was our language which was illogical and unwieldy. From this I began to suspect that all languages may be almost equally arbitrary and illogical, although some, such as Laswem, are certainly more so than others. In the course of my discussion with my acquaintance, before he tired of the subject, I found that it was impossible to translate the word intend into his language at all. When I asked the translator to do it, it replied that it could not do so without the context. As I advanced in facility, I was able to understand more and more of what my Laswem acquaintances said, though not to express myself to them in their tongue. They claimed not to understand me and could not see the point of making an effort when a translator was at hand. I would have abandoned the undertaking since several of my acquaintances were beginning to regard me as mentally disturbed, but I felt impelled to continue, though more discreetly, as a consequence of certain discoveries which seemed to me sinister. I discovered, in fine, that in all but the simplest utterances, the Laswem original differed in meaning, sometimes substantially, from the translator's version. This became particularly evident in all discussions concerning religion, local customs, marriage and family life, etc. To give an example of this, in listening to a recorded political conference between our representatives and theirs early in the year just past, in Laswem obtained while there, I heard the translator say, "We must safeguard our territory integrity," a familiar Laswem statement, but the speaker in fact had remarked, literally translated, "It requires itself that we others in no way mix our sacred blood," which is an entirely different thing. I found numerous other examples, and the more I pondered over them, the more I came to believe that the political differences between us, which grow daily more exacerbated, are due to these mistranslations, for which, however, the translators cannot be blamed, since they are inherent in the nature of the two languages. And when this is compounded by the number of separate languages spoken in the world, I believe it is more than 3,000. The situation can only be seen as extremely grave, yet the solution, if there is one, eludes me. The mobility of modern life requires that we come into constant contact with those who speak other languages, and it would be impossible for all of us to learn each other's tongues. In fact, without the invention and wide use of the translator, modern civilization would be impossible. The problem would be solved if everyone were to learn a single language. But if we cannot even agree with Laswam on the salinity of their efferent water, what chance have we of imposing the simplest and most convenient of all languages, our own, of course, on the whole world with its 200 billion people? That's the end of section 1.